You're listening to the Live Free podcast. I'm your host, Christine, certified life coach, pain to power mentor, and creator of Embody You Mindset Mastery School. I'm here today to discuss living life after disease, disaster, or adversity, to discuss living life fully once again, a life of hope, peace, and resiliency, a life fully embodied. I utilize the lessons that I learned going through not one, but two primary cancers. I'm here today to guide you to the life of your dreams, turn your pain into power, and lead you back to yourself. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Live Free podcast. Today, I want to talk about self-esteem and self-assuredness and feeling really rooted in yourself. Because it's interesting. We think it's linear, as we think everything is linear, don't we? We think that as we age, our self-esteem will go up and we will be more assured, and then someday we will be happy. We will be at that mountain crest that we are all searching for, and we'll feel like $1 million. And what's interesting is that we get harder and harder and harder on ourselves as that shows up as not true. So I'll give you a little bit of a story. So after my cancer journey, I felt like $1 million. Oh man, like top of the world, most confident I've ever been. Absolutely no interest in sharing too much of my energy with other people, knowing exactly where my boundaries lie. Very clear on how I'm feeling and what I want in this life. Very high self-esteem, feeling like, oh man, I can't conquer cancer. I can conquer anything. And so everything was going really, really well for me. And then a year went by and I still felt pretty good, but there was times where I felt, just a little off, a little tired. Side effects were kind of getting me from all the medications and those sorts of things. My weight still hadn't changed. That was really bothering me, but it was, I survived cancer. Like it's good enough. Right. And then I kind of faltered a bit and found my lessons again and felt really good again for a period of time. And then, not that long ago, I realized that my self-esteem was in the toilet. So this is 3 years post-cancer. So not that long ago, a few months ago, I realized that I was in such deep comparison. I had lost the weight and then I had gained almost all of it back. Due to some medication changes. And I was just feeling so low, so tired, so strung out. Absolutely like 4 jobs, because I've been helping out a family member with one of the jobs. The other one is I'm helping out a friend. Then there's my business. And then there is at that time, there was a secondary portion to my business where I was contracting for another company. And so all these things were amalgamated to, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm not kidding. 16, 17, 18. There was 18-hour days once in a while. It was pretty rare, but it has happened. I was so unbelievably strung out. I was so tired. I was constantly on social media because I have to be because of my career, but also because I just needed to numb out after these long days. And at first I was really like, you know what? Are you ready to feel it? Are you ready to numb? Are you ready to get in action? Like, where are you at? And it was totally fine. But after a while, I started getting really hard on myself. Like, why can't I get out of bed before I've scrolled for however long? I'm working, but I'm not really working, Anyway. And so I really hit this wall and I felt awful. And in so much comparison with all of the social media, all of the people online, all of the things, just feeling really, really low. And what was so interesting is within the last few months, I've polarized a couple of women. And that's really rare for me. Generally speaking, I am most people's cup of tea. Most of the time, I can be really helpful to other women, and they feel good around me. But I polarized a couple of women, and so I'm dealing with, the fear of not being liked because I'm so tired, the fear of, not putting my own health first, exhaustion, depletion, burnout, all these things, and just really at the end of my leash. And it all kind of culminated to be this really dark season. Not a long season, but a dark season nevertheless, this really low spot. And so I got a counselor because, hey, man, like when you need therapy, you need therapy. Like, that's just how it goes. And you think you need therapy one time, they do a really good job and then you're fixed. That's not how it works. Like I teach people mental health, and yet my mental health goes up and down. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. All of those things are okay. And so I decided to get some counseling. And I forgot to mention as well, I was struggling in my marriage as well. So all these things come together and I decide that I need some counseling. And I get in there and within 20 minutes or less, this amazing counselor, who I adore, by the way, says to me, "You're a strong people pleaser." No. Doesn't sound like me. And it was interesting because coming out of cancer, I was done with people pleasing. I had absolutely no interest, and I wasn't people pleasing, and I was really proud of that. But when you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you fall back into old patterns. And I was all of those things. I was hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And so I fell back into my people-pleasing roles. I was extremely uncomfortable that I had polarized these women. I was unable to sleep, insomnia. Oh my gosh, I've never had insomnia in my life until steroids with cancer. But then yet again, within these last few months, I've had a couple like 5 a.m. still staring at the ceiling, being like, what the hell is going on? And that doesn't help when you have 4 jobs. And so all these things are just like smacking me in the face all at once. Because, according to Gabor Mate, if you don't say no, the body will say it for you. And so I got really sick, and I even got shingles. That happened. I got a bunch of colds, and I was just not feeling myself. And all this to say, like, all this frustration that I had is like, I freaking, like, I got past cancer. Like, you're better than this, Christine. Like, not to push yourself this hard. But lo and behold, I was. And so this amazing counselor has been working with me with reshaping this people-pleasing tendency to really re-trust myself. This is really the theme, this trust in myself and who I am. And I want to talk about one specific session because there's nothing more interesting than storytelling to prove a point. First I need coffee. One moment. Need is not the question. No, I don't need coffee. I love coffee. Anyway, so we're having this great session. And he said to me, do you think you have self-esteem? And, kind of through emotion, I said, I don't think I do anymore. I think I lost it. And he was like, what are you talking about? Give me an example of you not having self-esteem. And I said, well, I care so much about these women who I've polarized. Like, I am sick about it. I can't stop thinking about it because it's rare for me. And so he said, just because you care about what somebody thinks doesn't mean you have low self-esteem. And that kind of slapped me in the face because I was really confused by that. And he also said alongside, he said, so if somebody doesn't, give me an example of somebody doesn't care what people think. And I said, well, my husband. My husband, Brad, does not give a shit about what people think. Like, if somebody doesn't like him, he's got a very, screw you attitude. He's like, well, whatever, that's fine. You can leave. And he said, that's not self-esteem. And I was like, what? Like, I know this stuff. I've been working on thyself for over, way more than a decade. And I'm dating myself now, but I think it's like a decade and a half since I started really diving deep into all of the psychology books and all of the social work books and the sociology and just the way that the world works and the mind works and the brain and, quantum mechanics and all the things. Okay. So before I started taking myself through university, I've never really thought of this idea that if somebody doesn't care about what people think, that's not self-esteem or not self-esteem. It's neither here nor there. And that the simplicity of caring about what somebody thinks is not self-esteem or is self-esteem, that it is neither here nor there. So I was interested. I was like, tell me more. Explain this to me because I don't get it. And he said, the world is made up of a teeter-totter of people. And some people are on the far ends of the teeter-totter and some people are in the middle and they're balanced. And they can be described very much as people pleasers, all the way to the other side of the teeter-totter, narcissists. And I agreed with that. People pleasers care about everyone else so much that that's all they can think about is living for everyone else. And narcissists care so much about themselves because they are deeply worried about what other people think, but they've become so rooted in themselves that they no longer feel anything. Now, that's not to say that I think my husband's a narcissist. He isn't. But what I'm saying is that on one side of the teeter-totter, the tendency is to say, screw you then. I don't care. I don't care what you think because I'm perfect. That's not what I think my husband thinks, but that is an example. And then on the other side, there's the other person who would describe me, who's, you don't like me, so that must mean that I am not enough, that I am broken somehow. And so this explanation really, really floored me. Self-esteem is not caring. Self-esteem is having the presence of mind to say, I may not be your person, and I can look at myself in that. I can see with clarity that I'm not your person, and there are ways that I contributed to that experience. But I love myself enough to say that while this does bother me, because it's human nature, I'm going to move on anyway. I'm going to be in my truth anyway. And that is self-esteem. So he asked me the question, do you trust yourself? And I said, I don't know. I used to. And then I felt like my self-esteem was so low that what's there to trust? And so then I really got thinking about it. If I have higher self-esteem, which I believe I do, especially once that explanation was said, and I started to understand that, that at this time I'm a further on the side of the teeter-totter of the people pleasers. I'm certainly in a low spot caused by burnout. But what it really comes down to is that I have all those thoughts. I can see how I contributed. I certainly, this is my truth and this is who I am, and that's okay. Someone who is willing to be self-aware and to take those deep dives and ask those questions of themselves and of others. That's the differentiating factor there. That when you're able to see yourself and others and say, I see both sides. I'm able to look at myself and I'm able to look into you. That is self-esteem. So then the answer is, yeah, I guess I do trust myself. It was insane to me. It really floored me. And so I wanted to share it with you because when these breakthroughs happen in my life, I don't want to just hide behind I'm perfect, because then I can't share with you what I know to be true, what I've learned. The only way that I can share with you that is by sharing who I am, the ups and downs that happen with everybody. The only difference between somebody who has worked on themselves and someone who hasn't is that when you are in the valleys, which will come, it is not all peaks. And the valleys are almost just as frequent, like maybe a little less, but not much. You still go through the ups and downs. But when you're in the valleys, you can find compassion for yourself, for where you are. You can ask for the counseling. You can see what you need. You don't wallow in self-shame or self-pity or anger for long. You do, because that's part of it. But you grow, and those valleys are shorter and less deep. That's it. That's the difference between my decade and a half of work and maybe your day one. That's it. It's not going to change. I wish there was a mountain crest. And you know what? Maybe there is that I just don't know about. But I've not found it. And almost all of the gurus that I listen to that are good will tell you that they have not found it, that there is no mountain crest. But you can learn to be in the valley for a shorter period of time because you know yourself inside and out. And each time that you open a new closet with new skeletons inside, you have to learn something, and you can do that with a little more compassion. You spend less time in shame, anger, discontentment, and more time in curiosity and questioning. And so that's what I really want for you through my podcast, through my teachings, is to help you to understand that you are perfect. You are great the way you are, and that in those low moments when you're polarizing people and you're tired and you're burnt out and frustrated and doing way too much, that you realize that you can still trust yourself, that you still have a beautiful, beautiful soul that is loved so deeply by so many. And that if someone is polarized by you, it may mean that there's something within them that they have to look at. Now, that's not to place blame on these women if you're listening. It's to instead say that we all have our shit. We do. We all have our shit. And all of it is okay. And all of it is beautiful. And all of it is important. And you deserve to be seen. So if you're struggling right now, get yourself a really good counselor. If you are local to where I live, I can send you to one. He's great. and he will call you on your shit, and I love it. And yeah, so much love to you. I hope that hearing my story of my burnout and frustration is giving you a little bit of feeling of normalcy, because you are normal. Those peaks and valleys, they are normal. You are going to go through them. I'm going to go through them again in a couple of months. Right now, I'm on a high. Right now, I feel really, really good. But that's okay. That's also a place where I can remain curious. I don't have to be terrified that the good feeling is going to go away, because I can handle the valley. And so can you. Okay? So much love to you. I hope that this has been illuminating and helpful, and I look forward to chatting again. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you found expansion with this last episode, then that means that others will too. And the best way to get the word out about the podcast is by leaving a review. I would be so grateful if you could leave me a review and let me know how you felt about the podcast. Included in the show notes will be everything that we talked about today, including all of my transformative programs. Change is just on the horizon, my friend.